So welcome everyone to session 2 of Carla Simulator. In this session we will learn basically how, let's say, interact with Carla and how to do very simple lateral and longitudinal control to follow basically a straight path. The first thing I would like to do, of course, is that after going to so you need to open an Anaconda prompt as we have done before, and I need to go to the directory of Carla. Then we need to basically activate the environment, which is Carla virtual environment. Okay, so yeah, in addition to that, just in the meantime, please download the additional maps if you are using Windows. So if you are not using Windows, you cannot download the additional maps. You find them basically under releases, same page where we downloaded. Oh, actually, there is a Ubuntu. Okay, where we downloaded the Carla basically simulator itself. We can also download additional maps for Windows and for Ubuntu as well. Alright, so back to the code. I'm just here. I have basically a code which I call it my test.py. So if you are in this directory of examples, just create an empty file. I will paste this on Moodle, but basically you can also write it yourself if you follow me here. So just quickly, I would like to describe what we see here. Now we have this is just let's say like logging, collections, and arc parser, like standard Python, I would say, packages that you can use. They are imported here. The second one is the Pygame, which, as I said, is used to render the scenes that are actually sent by the server, which is the Carla server. We render them to Pygame basically window or Pygame scene, because it's simple, and there you can, as I said, do all the actions and also the rendering. We can change rendering in Python. Now, what is important that we need to import Carla, and if you are familiar with Python here, we are just adding path to our project, or actually to our run here. And because the Carla module is actually not in the same directory, is one directory up, so it's here what you see, it's going one up, then adding Carla, then distribution, then basically the version that which is the last version that we have here. So here Carla is imported, and what is first step to do that we have seen before is that we need to connect with the client, which is the server basically as a client. And we have the local host, and we have here the port, which is 2000. Now we are setting timeout. In case the connection didn't happen for 20 seconds, it will close basically the code or break the code. You can increase this. Sometimes it takes longer to connect depending on the device, so you might get an error. So I would, in this case, I would recommend to increase this time here. I'm here just in the meantime until these are down, the new maps are downloaded. I'm just using now Town 4, and here, as we have seen before, you load the board and then you reload to get the new map in this case. Yeah, and this is basically now the board after you reloaded that board, and this is basically just a reference. Now, each map in Carla has already so it has roads, and these roads, they have IDs, which are different sections of the roads that we see in the environment or in the map. And these roads, they have waypoints, and these waypoints actually, they are control points or points that are along the path of the street or the road, like the SP line that I said basically before, the control point of the SP line, the same. and these are for all the maps you have predefined or pre-created waypoint that you can request, and for example you can use to control your vehicle. As I said in the lectures in Unreal Game Engine lectures, these control points are the first step, or the SP line, or the path, or the path planning, or the path is the first step for self-driving cars control basically. And there are different ways to get your path, okay, or to get the car to get its path. First is using, for example, machine vision that we'll see later. For example, you can use either first lane detection or lanes detection, where you detect the two lanes of, for example, and then with these two lanes you estimate the, let's say, the middle lane, or you can consider which is the path. So let's say if you have the coordinates of lane that on the right and you have the coordinates of the lane on the left, then you average the coefficient. Let's say the lane on the right is a polynomial curve and the lane on the left is a polynomial curve, and these curves, they have coefficients. So if you average this coefficient, you would get the model of the curve that in the middle and that is facing the car mainly. And this example curve you can use as a reference for your controller, that, for example, the car needs to follow that curve, as we have seen in the Unreal Game Engine simulations. Now, this is one way. There's also another vision technique, which is the semantic segmentation, where you don't look only for the lanes, the text lanes basically, but you segment the scene into different labels. One of them would be streets, and also one would be lane actually, and then you can use that again to estimate your path. The third, which is basically could be used together with the machine vision, so you can fuse you have like sensor fusion, for example, in this case, which is like GPS, for example, signals, and the path planning, predefined path planning by GPS. Or and this, for example, self-driving cars like Tesla, what they do, they actually create the waypoints of different cities that, for example, Tesla is operating in. And of course, for example, in San Francisco, of course, Tesla drives much better than other places, because there they have the waypoint and they have predefined routes that this car can take. Yeah, so coming back to Carla, we have here drawing the waypoints, and I said they are waypoints predefined in this case. This we will start from, but later we will try to detect basically this wave, or actually to estimate the path based on machine vision. And so yeah, before looking at this function, we see that here we have the waypoint, and we are from the client, we are getting word. Actually, this is not important in this case. We can just put it as like this, because we already give a reference to that. Generate waypoint distance 1. Okay, so now it's generating waypoints or control points at all the roads that we have with distance here basically 1 meter. So it's a very short distance. And then we are drawing this waypoint, giving that we don't need to draw all waypoints. We just want to draw waypoints that are along road ID number 10. So there are different road IDs there. And the lifetime of this basically waypoint is 20 seconds. After 20 seconds, they will be removed from the scene. Now, what we see here in the draw points function is that it takes the waypoints that are generated from the map, the road ID, the lifetime. Here default 50, but here we give 20, and this would override that. And now we say that for these waypoints, because they have features, and one of these features is the road ID, and if the road ID of this point is equal to the target road ID that we want, draw them. And to draw them, we are getting the location of these waypoints. You could get also speed, and speed, as I said, is used for the for the basically the longitudinal control. Okay, so for the cruise control, and we are drawing them here, and this is the shape that will be drawn with, like O, and we draw shadow, know which color, lifetime, and persistent lines, true, just to have basically persistent lines there. Now this is withdrawing the points there, and yeah, before going into the let's say the rest of the project, let me just do that and try and see what this code can do. I think it's this one. So these new maps are downloaded already. Okay. Yeah, so now we need to run my tests. So Python, first we need to go to examples, and then Python my test. So it will reload now to a new environment. Then it should draw the wave we loaded, and we see now here these waypoints that are drawn. So this is an ID of 10. This waypoint basically drawn on that section. So now what we will have in this case, that now is also the lifetime, you can see now they are gone, but basically what we would have is that the car would start maybe at the first point, so we will spawn a vehicle at the first point, then this vehicle would drive straight along that line. Okay, so yeah, let me show you something. Now I would suggest that after you first load the map, then just comment this, because otherwise it will restart from the beginning every time, because if you do this, you would always have this scene and you don't reset the simulator. And then yeah, let's see, for example, that I want to draw all waypoints, not only of the road ID number 10. So I can just comment this F condition there, then save, then run, and now we see that we have now all the, as I said, the waypoint of the simulator. Now it's interesting that there are no waypoints for this road here. Let's see. Probably because it doesn't have lanes, as you can. Points or 4 routes, let's say, that you can take, and these are the control points. Okay, so this is now the first step. The second step is now a specific location. Let's put back the condition, and what is happening here is that first we are also here, we don't need that because we have already created reference. And here there's something called get blueprint library, and there it consists of all the blueprints that, for example, Carla engine has. And we have seen what blueprint is in the Unreal Game Engine sessions. And here filter, which means that we are actually querying, or we are selecting one specific blueprint, which is Model 3, which is basically Tesla Model 3 blueprint. And here we are getting the reference to the vehicle blueprint. Okay. Now, let me bring that here first. And what we are doing here is now we are spawning that vehicle at a certain location. Or actually, this is important. So what is happening here? The waypoint, again, we filter them out and we are adding to a list which called the filtered waypoints, only the waypoint that they belong again to road ID 10. Now this is not really practical, so I would give here something, or because you have 10, 10 here, and if you make a mistake then it would be lost. So let me just write here road ID maybe 10 as a variable, and then put it here. Of course, you could use it also as a parsing argument later to be more also efficient in this. So yeah, now here we are just adding the waypoint to that belongs to road ID 10 to the list. And here we're saying, okay, take the first waypoint of that section of that road ID 10 and spawn the vehicle on that waypoint with a bit translation along the z-axis, because we need to have, let's say, like 2 over. It's because otherwise it will be actually the center or the origin of the vehicle would be exactly over the point, but you need to translate a bit up so it is on the road. If you even actually spawn it plus 10 or 100, then because of the physical or because of the gravity, the vehicle would be, of course, drawn down to the road. So this actually values, it should be more than 0. This basically is important. And here we have, yeah, so what you are saying here is that we have now word and spawn that actor, which actor, the model 3 at that location. Okay, so let's do that. Yeah, I have to move back there. Let's road ID number 10. And we can see that we have Tesla Model 3 that spawned at the first point there. Okay. Now we would have an issue because now if I run this code again, it will be spawned over that. So we'll get a problem. So we need to restart the basically the scene, but this is basically not a problem. Okay, now the next part is the control part. And this is something exactly similar to what we have done in the lateral and longitudinal control. So what you see here is that there is a built-in controller within Carla. It's called agents.navigation.controller. So you need to import agents.navigation.controller. And we specifically importing the PID controller. And here we actually, this PID controller takes 2 arguments, or 3 here basically. First one is what are you controlling, and we are controlling our vehicle. Second is the lateral, and then the third is longitudinal PID parameters. Here we have one for proportional, as you remember, and derivative and integral. And this is basically these parameters that you need to fine tune, of course, to for different vehicles, as we have seen, and you need to find them in order to get really good control. So this is basically the PID controller. And the next is, yeah, so this PID controller would target the points on the way points, or actually on the route. And what we are saying here is that the first point we need to target, we need to, you remember we had when in case of also of Stanley, or also, I forgot the, pure pursuit controller. We need to have this reference point that this car need to follow, and this reference point need to be always ahead of the car. So there's not should be a bit in front of the car. And this is why we take here that the waypoint number 8, like 8 points ahead, which means like 8 meter in this case, I think, and we will see now. And then we'll take that is my target point. And what would happen here now is that this car basically, now this we are just drawing the target point. And what would happen here is the control. We have a loop, as you see, and the custom controller will run step, which means we'll run one control step. And here basically it is this one control step, and this is the target point. So it would target that target point. And here you get the control signal, which are basically, of course, the throttle and the angles of the wheel. And there we apply this control on the vehicle, and of course the vehicle would follow that. We have a loop of 20, so basically this 20 ticks. If you have like one tick, maybe you would not reach the target point. You need to have multiple until it reaches the target point. Okay, now this what you'll see now is still very primitive or stupid controller, because it will it will just have one target point, and it will follow until you get that target point. But after that it might just continue driving until it reaches or it actually crashes. And as we will see, because there's no other conditions where we stop these cars. Okay, our only target is actually to reach this target point, and after that we don't care what would happen. Okay, so as I said, let's start again, because otherwise it would crash. Or let's do a bit more practical thing, is that I'll just copy that and start new. Okay. No, I doesn't copy. So this is Windows VM, as you see, and I'm using my MacBook. So this there are different keys. Oh, actually it was already. Okay, so I would like to save it as maybe it's correct. Yeah, this basically the look about here, the control simple initialization. So this is basically for initializing the map, and in this case I've copied it several times. Yeah, so we just need to reload. Once we want to reload, we just call this. And this is what I want to do now. We have an error. Yeah, that's save. Line 78. Oh, we have it. Okay. Okay, let's see. Yeah, now we have reloaded. Let's go to the section where this car should drive from. And now we run, yeah, here. Let's remove that because we don't create here or reload from here. Okay. Yeah, you see, so the car started and followed that path. Now it will continue as it said, and it will crash at the end, but it had only actually to start and go to that point. And let me see if the control point is, or the target point is a bit further. So it is, let's say, if we take the 20, because I'm interested to see what would be the effect on the controller, because if the point maybe is too far, then the PID controller or mainly the lateral controller would fail. We check. Okay, that was good. Still following. So we have now the second vehicle and they would crash together. And here now, let's take 40. I think it should work. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so let's take another route, for example, or another road ID. Maybe, I don't know, 20, if there's 20. But for that, we need to zoom up a bit because I don't know where it's located, or zoom out, sorry. That's there.